Hello summoners and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. For today we're going to take a look at the high elo tier list to make sure you play the best champions available to claim your dream rank in the upper brackets. But before we hop into exactly that one, we are gonna tackle our question of the day. What is your currently most favorite skin in the game? For me, it's the Stargazer Karma, even though we didn't get the Awakened one, which is kinda sad because it looks absolutely amazing. Maybe, just maybe we'll gain access to that later on. For the top lane, we start with Fiora. Fiora has always been one of the biggest lane bullies you can find. This champion has a disgusting laning phase and turns into a 1v1 duelist monster. Her finesse during the laning phase is unmatched and can only be stopped by being significantly better as a player or as a team piloting around the Fiora. Here are a few things you need to know about Fiora. Fiora doesn't really want to use Grasp anymore. With the changes to Conqueror, Conqueror also heals you from the true damage you deal thanks to the Omnivamp. Therefore, the healing you gain is so much more superior compared to the Grasp you cannot even imagine, plus the AD on top. With that in mind, Grasp is a rune that is kind of overused right now. Many people just take Grasp for a better laning phase to make sure that they survive and get into the game a little bit better. But if your matchup isn't bad, why should you ever default to Grasp when Conqueror grants you so much more? This is something you have to think about and should definitely do so. For items, here's something you also need to consider. You always want to have a Hullbreaker on Fiora, but not as your first item. Your first item is almost always the Divine Sunderer because this item makes you invulnerable on the side lane. The healing from this, your vitals, and all of the utility you have in terms of movement makes it so goddamn impossible to deal with you. And once you get to the Hullbreaker item point, things look very sketchy for the enemy team. But there's one thing you have to always consider, the mana problem. So some Fiora 1 tricks also go Tear of the Goddess in between their first and second item just to make sure they don't run out of mana. Plus the AD you gain from that item is quite insane, which is quite nice for the scaling on Fiora. And this is our full tier list for the high elo Baron lane. Our next pick for the jungle role is Vi. Vi is a champion that loves consistency because she can do both that most other champions can't do. She can either farm or she can be very proactive early on. So you remember all those Lee Sins that do 1 or 2 camps and walk mid lane to gank you? Yeah, Vi can do something similar, but she doesn't have to. She excels at clearing the jungle. Similar to a Morgana, she can clear the jungle very fast and very well and then snowball the game from a level 5 point perspective. Once she's level 5, the counterplay mechanism is not really available unless you're safely under tower with no way of getting dove. But let's be honest, if you're a bruiser in the Baron lane and playing against another bruiser, it's very likely you just kill them. You just throw everything into their faces and they just die. But to achieve this level of quote-unquote talent, you have to be very much aware of what you can do. In the current jungle climate, many players will not clear the jungle, they'll just walk around and get killed, and they'll be rewarded for it. So the more important thing you have to work on is your map awareness during the jungling role. You need to see what is happening next to you, and if you do so, you'll gain so many more chances of influencing the game in a positive manner. And please, for your sake of sanity, don't flip objectives. Let your team do whatever they want to do and go for the play that you deem is the most worthy play, which is most of the time a Herald play because it's easier to execute, easier to snowball with, and just overall more powerful. Unless you're able to stack all the dragons in solo queue. But don't forget, even if you get all the dragons in solo queue, excluding Elder, you still are able to lose the game because people can run it down for no reason because they have no clue where to be. Don't forget that dragons are only stats that make you better. If you're a really bad player, they don't do anything for you. And this is our full tier list for the jungle role. The next champion on this list is a recent addition to the game. It's Yone. Yone as a champion is the brother of Yasuo, but in a better version, stronger version, and easier to pilot version. This champion's damage is absurd. He has the ability to just crowd control everyone multiple times during a teamfight, snap back to his shadow, deal true damage bonus to his normal damage dealt, and just go over walls continuously. But if there's one thing that's the most disturbing about this champion is the fact that he can clear a wave that is frozen in front of him. All he has to do is use his third ability and walk there and attack the wave. So even if he was about to get ganked, he can just snap back and be back in peace. This is also something you have to get used to when it comes to plays that are across walls. If you don't know how the outcome will be if you go in, then you can be safe and just go in with your third ability and then just snap back. That way it's just easier. Also, the typical cookie cutter combo is your third ability with your fully stacked first ability into the enemy champions, and once they're knocked up, you cast your ultimate ability into them, throw every single spell you have onto them and snap back and say, yep, thank you, I'll take the pentakill. It sounds unbelievably easy, and it is unbelievably easy if you execute it well and know how to spot those situations. And this is our full tier list for the mid lane. For the AD carry role, we have a champion that hasn't been seen too many times in terms of highlights, tier lists, or like anything. It is Tristana. Tristana is a champion that loves to snowball, and in solo queue, AD carries are substantially better to snowball games compared to mages. This comes down to the fact that in a solo queue environment, people are more likely to commit mistakes compared to a competitive environment. Therefore, it's easier to start snowballing on a carry, and if the carry has mobility or reset features, the game ends very fast, at least usually. Tristana combines a lot. Tristana has a lot of upfront burst damage with her third ability and her ultimate ability, and gains the range to carry fights from afar, plus on a kill or detonating a bomb with full stacks, gains a reset on her second ability. Here's a little secret to deal more damage faster on Tristana. Did you know that landing your second ability while the enemy is tagged with your third ability will also increase the stack of that ability? The ult is the same. Whenever you hit the enemy with a spell that deals damage, you'll increase the bomb stack by 1, which means you can detonate it faster, at least in the earlier stages of the game. Next to this, you have to consider the changed Navori Quick Blades. The cooldown reduction this item provides is insane, and on a champion that's very dependent on abilities to deal damage, this item comes in clutch. It is absolutely broken, and you'll build it most likely as either your third item, or maybe in some situations your second item. It really depends on what you're feeling like, because sometimes Infinity Edge Rush into Navori Quick Blades feels the best and appears the best, but not always. But one thing is certain, you'll enjoy playing Super Mario with Tristana on people that have no idea what's gonna happen to them. And this is our full tier list for the AD carry role. Last but not least, we have the big W of this patch. It's Nautilus. Nautilus is a champion that has been buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed again, and now with the support items around, he has reached a critical mass point where he's just too powerful. This champion during the laning phase just doesn't die. You start with the second ability and the relic shield, and what happens to you? Well, nothing, because you have too much HP. Next to this, you have a rooting passive ability that once you hit an enemy that hasn't been tagged by this ability yet, you will just root him for a brief duration, plus you deal bonus damage. Now, if you add your second ability's auto-attack reset on top plus the bonus damage, you will see that your champion deals quite a lot of damage. And if you are able to hit all your spells, beginning with the ultimate ability, which guarantees your first ability to hit, which then guarantees your normal auto-attack to hit, which then guarantees your second auto-attack reset from your second ability to hit, it's quite a lot of damage. When it comes to crowd control or overall teamfight control, your third ability on max rank has a 50% AoE slow. You'll surely be able to move. And for items, just go Seed Jar and Varmox and you're happy. And this is our full tier list for the support role.